Hello, and thank you so much for joining me today to learn a little bit more in depth about what it really means to have a flipped classroom. So hopefully through this video I can provide some further detail and some further information so that you really understand what I'm looking for and what the expectations are for your third grader this year. So I really just kind of want to start off and explain what a flipped classroom is. It's really, this graphic infographic is really great, a great visual representation for what a flipped classroom is. So you'll see over here on this side we have our traditional classroom, which it says the sage, the teacher's role is the sage on the stage. And that's kind of a funny term, but what it really means is that, you know, the teachers have full control. They're the ones at the front of the room. They're doing all the talking, all the learning, and the students are sitting and getting the information. And so it's kind of that lecture feel where they sit and they get, where they get the learning in the classroom, and then at home is where they go and they do the practice. The flipped classroom takes that. And the teacher's role is kind of the guide on the side. And what that means is instead of getting that lecture in the classroom, they're getting the lecture at home. And so what I found is that students take their homework home. Some of them fight with you about doing it. And especially with math, which is where I do most of my flip videos, there seems to be mistakes that can be made. And, you know, a student who has 15 to 25 problems of long division and they're making the same mistake over and over, they have to undo what they've already learned. So they have to learn that their long division process was wrong, unlearn that, and then relearn the correct way of doing it. And so what this flipped classroom does is allows me to be with your child for the practice piece. So at home is where they get the lecture or the video at home, the learning, where it can be at their own pace. So they can take a break, go to the bathroom, watch 5 minutes, rewind, watch it again, and then in the classroom is where that practice piece really comes into play. When your student and your child brings their video home, I do want to really let you guys know that I am not looking for your child to master that concept in that moment. That's the first time they're learning it. So if it's fractions, it's the first time they've learned fractions at the third grade level. And so some of them are not going to be familiar with what they need to do and what they're learning. And that's okay. That's why they're watching the video, and some of them maybe will watch it once or twice. So then they come into the classroom and we kind of take their learning to the next level. So at home, you'll probably have noticed I've talked a lot about this WSQ, or what I like to call a whisk. And that's kind of what the process is that they need to go through at home to accomplish their homework. So they're going to set up a page, and we'll have an example of this in their expandable folder for you. A W for watch, so when and where did they watch their homework. S is summarize, so what was the main idea of the video. I'm looking for 2 or 3 sentences here kind of to describe what they learned. And then question, what's one question you still have about whatever you learned, and if you know it already, write a question to have your classmates answer, to kind of give them a problem and have them solve it. So students are going to fill this whisk out during or after watching the video, and then they're going to bring this to class the next day or whenever that video is due, and we're going to discuss it in a small group. The whisk is so important to our flipped classroom because it really allows me to see that, yes, the students already heard about this before in the video, and 2, they're ready to take their learning and practice. So when they come to the classroom, we'll talk about the whisk in small groups. We'll share our whisks out with the class, and then we'll create notes or an anchor chart to kind of anchor our learning and to have a good reference for ourselves in the classroom. So not only did they hear that video at home, hopefully more than once, but they're also getting that same information again at school in a more condensed fashion. Another great piece of this video is that I'm archivable. And so if, we get through a lesson, we're working on an activity, and I see Johnny or Susie not understanding fractions or place value, I'm archivable. So they can go back and watch that video again and get that information again, which is the greatest piece about a flipped classroom. So kind of a little bit about why. It gives me as the teacher more freedom to really work with the kids one-on-one in small groups to either enrich what they're learning or bring it down to a level that they really understand. So instead of standing at the front of the class, I'm able to really dig in with the kids and really nail down and hanker in where they're struggling, what they need help with, and fix it a lot faster because I have more time in the classroom to really get there and work with the students. Again, like I said, students can watch the videos multiple times to review the concepts. That's fabulous. That's great, especially for some of our students who maybe need to hear it more than once to really get it. It also allows us to differentiate instruction. Again, I can, like I said, give one-on-one help to students in class before or after school, but instead of before or after school, excuse me, and then identify exactly where they're having problems and help them with that. The classroom really becomes more transparent. You as parents feel more involved when you get to watch the videos at home. You see what we're learning, and if your child is struggling, you know the words that we're using in the classroom, the way that we're teaching the math. So when they do have an assignment that needs help, you kind of know where to go to help them. Last year was my first year I flipped my classroom, and I did survey my parents once a month as well as the kids to really gauge kind of how they were feeling about flipped classrooms. And here are some quotes from the things that they said. One parent said, "I love the videos. It helps me know how to talk to my child about math using the same terms and processes that are used in class. They're easy to understand, a useful learning tool, great tools that help my child review or get prepared or gain confidence with concepts." Another great one, seeing how you teach math and hearing the vocabulary you use to explain the process helps me reinforce the process at home. When we talk about real-world applications, I like to use the same words you use in class to help it click. I think the videos are great. They are very easy to understand and helpful. While it's important for parents to support this classroom, this flip video classroom, it's also important for the students to really like it and engage in the homework. So from the surveys I did with my students, I like math and I feel like I understand it more. Math this quarter was really good. So those were from my students from last year. And then I did kind of survey. I got with yes, no, maybes, 1 through 5 scale. And I had 55% of my class last year respond that I love math, and only 3 said it was my least favorite thing. And that was in September last year, so they had only just kind of gotten started with that flip video. 84% said that they understand more math with this way. 87% of my class watched the videos at home on a regular basis, and the other 13% watched them in my room before school. So there was 100% of my students were watching the videos ahead of class time. So now what? What do I do in the classroom now that the students have gotten the learning at home, so to say? Whatever you used to send home for homework is a really great way, a great thing for me to do. So sometimes I'll do some independent practice pages to really nail in and get those kids practicing problems. I also do some guided and independent practice. Like I said, guided is when I'll pull small groups and work with them. And then problem-based learning is where I'm going to spend the majority of my time this year, where the students are going to get authentic problems that are collaborative. They're designed around multiple standards. And so instead of just learning about fractions, the problem that they'll be learning might have fractions, subtraction, measurement, multiplication. So they're getting more than one skill at the same time. It also often requires inquiry and critical thinking skills. So they're problem solving, they're working together, they're collaborative, and they're learning so many math concepts at the same time. It really helps them understand why. Why do I have to know how to subtract across zeros? Well, in the PBL we are doing, maybe we're building houses and we have a budget. And so we talk a lot about, well, what happens if you're not a home builder? Why would you need to know how to subtract across zeros? So we spend a lot of time in class working in those areas, really helping them understand not only how to do the problems, but why they do them. And it also creates a really authentic, engaging activity. The students love them. They're excited about them. And here in just a second, I'm going to have a few examples of some PBLs I did last year. And while students are doing the PBLs, that's my opportunity to do quick formative assessments to see if they understand the concepts. And then if they don't, I pull them back to a small group and I work with them. And if they do, then I pull them back in a small group and I take it a step further for them. This is one of the many examples of PBLs from my classroom last year. This specific activity was a Pickett Hospital. So the kids came in that morning and I had transformed the classroom into a hospital. The activities included lifelike hospital patients. So students had to dissect brains, got a little gory. We were working on volume and mass specifically, so as the kids rotated through the different stations, they were tackling the skills, but they were also having a lot of fun. I guarantee, we got a little messy. As you can see, we had kind of blood-like materials and hot dogs as intestines, ramen noodles as brains, but they were working on mass and volume. So they were measuring, creating, they were also adding and subtracting through the different stations. And it was a great day, probably one of my favorite days of my classroom last year. So that was just one quick. Here's another one. This one was our fraction craze Kool-Aid. And they were working on fractions with this activity. They were instructed to make Kool-Aid using no instructions. And then they were using a cup first. And then I took that cup away. So I handed them a third. Some of them got a fourth. Some of them got an 18th or a 16th. And then they were having to figure out how to convert the fractions to find equivalent fractions. They also then took it another level, and then they were multiplying the fractions, trying to figure out if they were going to double the recipe or triple the recipe, what kind of fraction they would need if they were using 1/4 or 1/8. So just another example. Here's the Pickett's Pizzeria. This was another fun day. On this one, we were working on multiplication, and the students decorated or designed one piece of pizza with specific ingredients like pepperoni, black olives, green onions, and they decided how many pieces of pepperoni they put on their pizza. So for example, they put 5 on there. So from there they had to figure out how much they would use if it was for a whole pizza. So then they were going to say 5 times 8. To take it even further, they figured out, well, if I'm going to feed my whole class, how many pizzas do I need? And how many pieces of pepperoni do I need? So not only were they working on multiplication, but they were working on the distributive property. And this is the opportunity for me to really expand it for my higher kids and bring it down for maybe our kids who are struggling a little bit. I could even take it farther and ask them to figure out for the whole school, for the whole 3rd grade, how much pizza are we going to need? This was our Lego activity, which was actually an open house. So parents were invited in on this specific PBL, as well as the pizza one I just spoke about, to come in and experience the learning with us. That was a great opportunity, I think, for my parents last year to understand what the classroom was looking like when they were watching the video at home. Well, what are you doing in the classroom? And so this really showed them that we were really learning and having authentic real-world opportunities. This activity was they were building a Lego dream house, and each piece was represented a certain amount of money. So they got a budget to start, and as they put pieces onto their house, they were subtracting from their total. So it really allowed them to work across zeros, work with 3- and 4-digit numbers, add and then subtract, so they were doing a lot of multi-step problems. This one was our cafe, our Pickett's Cafe, or I'm not quite sure what we called it. They were working on addition with money, and they went out to lunch this day, and so you'll see I decorated the tables real fancy for their lunch, their cafe lunch, and each person at the table ordered an entree, an appetizer, a dessert, a drink, and they had to add that up individually, and then as a team, they added together their total. They also were able to go to different restaurants, so we were able to really differentiate again what they were working on and how it was going to affect them as a learner. So those are just some quick examples of some things we did last year. Some things I'd like to, I'll probably hopefully use some of those again, and I hope to add more ideas and PBLs to my classroom environment. So just kind of in our classroom, the flipped classroom is going to look like no more than 3 videos a week. Usually 1 or 2 will be the maximum. If I do give a video, you will get 2 days to complete it. And they probably won't have other math homework during those 2 days because I really want them to focus their time on the video. And then, again, we're going to follow that same pattern. So we have videos and the whisk, like I mentioned before, the anchor chart in class. We're going to practice the skills together. So we'll do a couple, if we're working on addition, we'll do several addition problems together as a class. Then I'll give them something independent. So that would be like the homework page that maybe typically would go home. They'll work on that homework page independently in school, which allows me to watch, help, and correct if there are problems. And then we do that fun PBL experience where they're actively engaged, hands-on, applying the learning. Again, the formative assessments I usually do typically once a day, so I can see what the kids are understanding and what maybe we need to revisit the next day. Thank you so much for spending time to watch this video and learn more about what a flipped classroom looks like. I'm very excited for this opportunity to continue flipping my classroom, as the last year of experience has really opened my eyes to the possibilities that it really does allow you to have in the classroom and the growth that I really saw in my students last year. Please feel free to call me, email, contact me in any way that you choose. If you still have questions or concerns about this way of teaching, since I know it is very different than maybe what you're used to in the past. Thank you again, and I look forward to an awesome year.